Hello, welcome to the Smart Connector podcast. I've got a great guest for you tonight, Kirsty Kianifard. Kirsty, welcome. It's so great to have you here.
Thanks for having me on, Jane. It's great to be here.
So Kirsty's a wellness entrepreneur. She's an award-winning wellness entrepreneur who helps people in that space the world over to scale up their businesses and get online and do all sorts of amazing and wonderful things. So we're really going to get into the opportunity tonight for wellness practitioners. And of course, that's also your own background, isn't it, Kirsty?
It is indeed, yeah. So it's been my whole life. I've never worked in any other industry, trained as a sort of holistic practitioner way back in the day, straight from school. And so, yeah, I've sort of been a practitioner myself and have evolved into what I do now.
So when you say you've been a practitioner yourself, Kirsty, what exactly is it that you did in your own wellness practice?
So it started off very much like beauty focused. I loved all the sort of aesthetics. And then when I started getting on hands-on clients, I just fell in love with the deep connection that I was getting with my clients. I moved into the world of holistic. So we're talking like body work, massage, Reiki, all the things. But yeah, as I sort of finished being a practitioner, my main thing that people came to me for was body work and energy work.
Yes. And you're also a spa owner, aren't you, Kirsty?
I am. And today is actually a big celebration for me because today is the 11th birthday of my spa. And it's also my podcast 100th episode birthday as well.
Wow.
So yay. So yeah, it's been a great day today. And yeah, I opened that spa when I was 23 as a practitioner. I wanted to, work in a business that I just loved, that wanted to be able to infuse my ethos in there. And even though I'm not a practitioner now, yeah, it's still going strong.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations. First off, a double congratulations for the podcast and the spa. So that's amazing work, Kirsty. So what I'd like to really get into tonight is, what is the opportunity in the wellness space? Is it growing? I believe it is, but why is it growing? Why is wellness so popular? So if you're a wellness practitioner actually watching this, how do you actually define yourself as a wellness practitioner, and what is the opportunity available for you? So I'm hoping, Kirsty, that you can dig into that topic.
I can, and I've played with this term wellness entrepreneur. It's not something that everyone loves, but it's something that I own and I love it. And for me, it's just really about anyone that focuses on promoting the well-being and the wellness of people and planet. And so that for me is what, summarizes a wellness practitioner. In our little pre-chat, I was saying, it really does, like counselors, coaches, spa owners, salon owners, nutritional therapists, PTs, yoga teachers, so anyone like that. But yeah, the opportunity in the wellness industry is always been a steadily growing industry in extremely diverse ways. But really, in the last 18 months, there's never been an opportunity like this. People like me that have been in the industry for donkey's years have always been trying to beat that drum that looking after yourself isn't and shouldn't be a luxury or an optional extra. It should be front and foremost of how we spend our money, how we spend our time. Because if we don't have our own health and wellness, what's the point in everything else? But recently, obviously, given everything that's happened in the last year and a half, when we've been stripped of all the things that we normally do, and what we're seeing in the mainstream media is this reality check that actually, without our health and wellness, we don't have anything. So we're really starting to see, as I say, in the mainstream media, it dominating headlines and it being in, we don't have to convince anyone anymore. I think everyone's sold on this idea that maybe if I wasn't looking after myself before, or maybe if I wasn't prioritizing it, coming out of this last 18 months, that's got to change. So those that are already in that space or thinking of getting into it, now's the time. The opportunities are vast.
Yeah, I definitely second that. And this is just anecdotally, because I love aesthetics. I love to have facials. That's one of my big treats. So I've noticed when I go to my aesthetics practitioners, they say they've never been busier. They say the demand is insatiable, and I think it's not just about vanity, is it? It's also about actually being the very best versions of ourselves on the inside and the outside. And I think people want that, don't they?
Yeah, and I think it never has been actually about vanity. I think those like yourself and me that like do it all the time, it gets painted like that, but we've always known, and as a practitioner owning a spa, the amount of clients we come in where that 1 hour that they're having a facial or they're having their nails done, that might be the only hour in the whole month where they are uncontactable, they are giving something back to themselves. And where else do you get that? Where else do you get that fully focused time on yourself? So it's just nice that the rest of the world are catching up. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And as you said, there haven't been the distractions, have there? Because the shops have been closed, the restaurants have been closed. We've gone into a different mindset, haven't we? Because we don't take all of those things for granted. It's been difficult to go on holiday. There's a lot of uncertainty, isn't there, around which country is safe, whether we're going to go into quarantine. But something like wellness and aesthetics and looking good on the outside, feeling good on the inside, that is something that is controllable, isn't it? Is that part of the appeal, do you think?
I definitely think so. And I think now that, those bigger luxuries maybe are feeling more tricky, but also like the contact, not being able to touch or have physical contact with anybody. And obviously the salons and spas, albeit at the first emerging of lockdown, we were treated, like this sort of very dodgy industry. But in reality, we were doing all those things already. So I actually think it felt like a really safe space to come into, where you can have that physical contact. You can have all those, release of endorphins, just finally go, drop your shoulders and just feel that touch that we also need, but in a way that felt really safe and controlled. So yeah, I think it meets those two places and just gives that little bit of respite that we all need right now.
Yeah. So when I talk to guys about aesthetics, about wellness, about all of that stuff that we love, they're sometimes completely bemused and mystified because they know nothing about this world. So I'm really interested to hear your perspective on whether this is something that men are taking up more, whether it remains a relatively female-dominated space, both in terms of clients and customers and also the practitioners themselves.
Yeah, the first thing I'll say on this, if there's any practitioners watching, is that male clients, and this is a massive assumption, but I've seen the evidence, are your most loyal customers. Like men, in my experience, once they found something that they love, there's no need, they just keep going. It's like, I don't need to shop around. I don't need to find the best deal. I don't need to try this one and then that one and that one and then come back. So we've had clients, male clients that, well, both genders, but that have been with us for 10 years, 11 years. So I think the tides are turning. We've always had a high percentage of male clients because the spa itself focuses a lot on body work, so it's less beauty. So I think naturally, if you've got a sort of pink and fluffy salon, you're going to attract potentially more female customers. So I've always been quite neutral and heavily focused on body work. But I do think the tides are changing a bit with that. I think for the same reason. I think also that, it's hopefully less stigmatized and men feel like, again, men's mental health is a massive conversation. So why should it just be something that women are doing? But I do think that as practitioners, we need to take that up in our own marketing and make sure that we're being inclusive and making it clear that we are available to everybody and not just a certain type of person.
Yeah, so you have an international client base, don't you, Kirsty? So do you notice cultural differences across the world, or do you find that some cultures are much more open to wellness and some are slightly more closed, or they see it more as a women's preserve? I'd be really interested to find out.
Yeah, and I think that over here in the UK is possibly one of the slowest. It's possibly one of the, I think in many other countries, for many of my other clients, this idea of integrated healthcare, this idea of, you would go and see a GP, but of course you'd also go and see an acupuncturist, or you'd also go and see a herbalist. That sort of integrated, holistic approach seems a lot more accepted in some countries. And I think over here it does still seem, it's very, very separate. We're starting to see more corporate clients, doing initiatives, wellbeing initiatives for their staff and giving them budgets to go and get treatments and do lovely things. But yeah, I think in terms of healthcare, it's still very separate here. And I think that is really where things change. I think when you've got this integrated approach, then it just becomes the norm. So yeah, I don't necessarily think that we're particularly advanced over here in that.
I wonder whether that's something to do with the NHS, that people have got used to thinking that their needs are going to be catered for without them having to pay anything. Do you think that might play a part in it?
Yeah, very possibly. I think very possibly. Yeah. I mean, it's a privilege. It's a luxury to be able to afford those sorts of services. It's not openly available to everyone, and we have to acknowledge that. And also, as practitioners, we have to look for ways to create accessible offerings, I think.
Yes. So when you're working with your clients, Kirsty, and you mentioned accessible offerings, because as you said, it's actually expensive. It's expensive to go and have facials and to have hypnotherapy and to have massages. And it's that thing that a lot of people do think is a luxury. So what exactly is affordable in the wellness space?
Yeah, I mean, that's the big question, right? And I think, I mean, for me, in both my business models, my coaching model and my sort of spa model, I have varying offerings that try to meet various price points. But I also look for how can we, particularly in my online business, how can I create free value? So much like you do with your podcast. So even in the spa, it's looking at things like events that we can run or live sessions that we can run, which we help people walk through how they can do certain things for themselves, or competitions and promotions. And it's always harder. Like when you've got, overheads and you've got your brick and mortar stuff, it is harder. But I think sometimes it is just setting the intention. If you're intentional that you're trying to appeal to a wider audience and are aware of creating accessible offers, or even collaborating with some charities, things like that, I think it's important because it's so aligned with the ethos of what the wellness industry is about.
Yeah, because that's one of the things that we were talking about earlier, wasn't it? That the type of clients that you get in that industry, they tend to be very ethical and very focused on value and a kind of win-win. I'm sure they tend to be very nice people on the whole.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. I mean, wellness practitioners I am like a mega super fan. Like I couldn't imagine working with any other entrepreneur. I love them. Like I was saying to you, so many wellness practitioners have got into this work through personal transformation. They've gone on their own healing journey. They've maybe found a particular discipline or a practice that that's helped them, that they've fallen in love with. And they're just thinking, I need to get this out there. And that's actually, again, where I come in, because many people don't get into the wellness industry because they want to be an entrepreneur, because they want to build a business. They're just passionate about the offer and service. And then suddenly realize, I need to learn this. And it's a failing of the industry as well, because it doesn't arm practitioners with the tools to build business. It creates really good practitioners, but not very good business owners.
Oh, what a shame, because as you said, every business needs clients, right? We need, we all need cash flow. We all need to have recurring revenues and all of those things that actually build businesses from just being that kind of painful boom and bust roller coaster to something that we actually feel good about and that serves our lives, right?
Absolutely. And that was me, that's my story.
Yeah.
Back in the day, I rolled out thinking like, how hard can it be? And, it was a big wake up call. But now, I'm grateful for that, because I can connect and relate to my clients. I get it. I've been there.
Yeah. And I think that is really what everybody looks for. They look for people they felt the pain, they've been through the same things, and they've come out the other side and found the solution, right? So that is a big reason why people will want to hire people like you, isn't it, Kirsty?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, I always say that if you're in the wellness industry, work with someone that's been in it, is in it, has done it, because as I was saying to you earlier, it is a unique industry. And yeah, I'll just help you not make those same mistakes.
Yeah.
I know what to look out for.
Yeah, so let's talk about your mistakes, how you learnt, and how you you struggled in the early days, but you came out the other side. What were the lessons that you learned, and how did you come to realize that actually business success is so important, and that those business and marketing skills are really the thing that's going to make your practice successful and make your life happier?
Yeah, well, I think I just thought, I mean, I remember saying there's a particular person that I have in mind who he owns like half of the commercial properties in the area that I now have my spa. And I remember him coming in as a customer, and he was looking at my price list in year one, and he was like, what is this? Why is it so cheap? Bearing in mind he's a customer, it was benefiting him that it was cheap. But he was like, what are you doing? And I remember saying, I'm not in this for the money. I'm not here to make money. And like now I look back and think, like, I thought I was like, this was this heroic thing to say. But in reality, particularly in the wellness industry, I was working personally 7 days a week, every hour of the day. And I was just desperate to make these clients feel better, but quite frankly, at the expense of my own well-being, Yeah. I mean, there's so many stories, undercharging is probably the biggest one. Having no idea about marketing whatsoever, thinking that like one ad in the local paper, because it was that long ago, would be it. I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to pay a few £100. I'm going to have that little tiny square, and they're going to come storming in. And then I'd be like, what's going on? And it took ages and ages and ages. And really, I just worked myself into the ground. I think for me, my why, and we might speak about this, that kept me going. It sort of almost didn't matter. But then I started to realize I need, just much like I'd learned to be a practitioner, I needed that you could actually learn to do business. Like I started to self-teach, and I started to like look up things and read books and all of this. And I started to think, actually, I've got quite an analytical brain. And I was like, there's a process here, there's a system. And that started to excite me, because I was already doing all right. And I thought, what if I could bring these two worlds together? And so, yeah, a good few years later, I started to invest in getting support and learning the processes. And actually, once I had sown a few of those seeds in my own mind, that just sparked something. And I think my brain was always wired for that. And it suddenly was like, oh, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. And so I was able to take some of those sort of ideas and implement them into strategies for my business. And so, yeah, the rest is history. And I'm still absolutely just adore business. I just love learning about how to take what I've got and amplify it. It's just mega.
Yeah, and it's also very creative, isn't it? It's got it's great fun, I think, when you get bitten by the bug. So Kirsty, you mentioned purpose. I'd love to go back to look at that, and actually, if you wouldn't mind sharing your purpose, your reason why, and why this thing became so important to you to make it successful.
Yeah, so I have to go back to like my early years, like we all do. And yeah, didn't have the best upbringing, and was just a really troubled teenager, extremely angry at life, just hated everything, hated everyone, just felt like everything was against me. And cut a long story short, but I found yoga. I found a book on chakras, and I started to study it. As I was always very rebellious, still am, but I saw it as a rebellious act in a way to sort of try yoga and read these books. It was so against what my family and friends and everything were doing. And it was just this weird moment where I felt like I'd found this different language that only I understood. It was like I was reading something that I remembered. And just through, again, self-teaching, doing various things, I just totally transformed. I was suddenly someone that was happy and loved life and found beauty in things. I always remember this really cringy moment where I was in my parents' garden, and they love gardening. And I didn't. I hated it. My dad would always be trying to tell me these Latin names of plants, and I'd just be thinking, what is wrong with him? And then one day I saw it. I saw what he could see. I was like, this is beautiful. And things just like, it's like light started to come on. And so from that moment, and I was really young, from that moment, I was like on this quest to figure out how I could learn these practices. And it took me like a long winding road to find the real thing that I loved, to help others. I've always had this thing that I just hate human suffering. I only need to watch something on TV and see someone struggling, usually around mental health is something that really, really triggers me. And I just think we're not equipped, we're not armed when we're at school with the tools to deal with life. Life is hard, it's difficult, and I didn't have those tools. I had to find them myself, and luckily I did, but many people don't. And so that's my fuel. That was very much my fuel. It still is my fuel. And I got to a point where I realized, I was a fully booked therapist. I couldn't really go anywhere else. And people kept coming to me and asking, how are you building your business? How are you building your business? So I realized I could actually help do it more on a bigger scale if I could help other wellness practitioners to scale their business. So yeah, that's my why.
Yeah. Oh, that's really, really powerful. And of course, you've got a mental health story there as well, because I also had a bit of a troubled childhood. So I know when you feel kind of out of sync with the environment that you grow up in, what happens is you do turn into an angry teen and a rebellious teen, and you do go to that place. So in a way, John DeMartini, who I also interviewed for my podcast, who I respect enormously, he always said, well, values create voids create values. That was the thing that he said. So the thing that you feel as though you didn't have, it then becomes really important to you. And so in a way you found your feet, as you said, because you needed that. You felt the lack. And I think that is a very, very familiar story. But one of the things that is really sad is that they don't teach this stuff in schools. I mean, what do you think about that, Kirsty? People are not taught how to look after themselves, how to look after their mental health, and how to move from being really sad and troubled to that, happier place. What do you think about that as a parent as well?
Yeah, well, my clients, that's what they deal with. Their whole job, their whole livelihood is helping people that never had the tools to help themselves. And, sometimes luckily that's like it's in lighter ways, but sometimes not, And I think I don't understand it. It blows my mind. I just think how, when I look back to my school days, okay, I wasn't that, I did all right, but I wasn't concentrating that hard. But I still think now, how much of that do I use now? Like, really, how much of that do I use now? If I'd been taught how to do some of these, just simple, like we don't have to go super woo, I'm not expecting that. But I think a few mindfulness practices, a few breathwork exercises, movement exercises, but just as a staple every day, maybe starting a day with it, centering the day with it, finishing the day with it. It seems bonkers to me, absolutely bonkers. I'm lucky that my 3 children, they've got me and my husband and my family, and it is very commonplace in our day to day. My daughter, my eldest, will regularly ask for Reiki before bed, and we read mindfulness books, and there's all that sort of stuff going on. And my son is autistic, and he's pre-verbal, and so we use a lot of touch and sensory things to communicate. So in our home, that is happening, but yeah, I just, it blows my mind that we're still even having this conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And the school system really hasn't changed for nearly a century. We're still teaching the same subjects in the same way, and sending these children out into the world ill-equipped, really, for to be their very, very best selves. So I'm completely with you on that. And as you said, it's good for the wellness industry, but it's not good for our children and for anybody really that's coming through that school system, is it?
No, and it would be incredibly simple. Like, there are the trainings that say perhaps teachers could be, when people are training to become teachers, that could just be embedded in the training. Could be so simple. Would make for, I'm sure the teachers would be happier too, more harmonious environments. But again, maybe this will be something that comes as a result of what's gone on in the last 18 months, because I really don't believe we've seen the fallout of the impact the last 18 months has had on kids, and I don't think we will for a good few years. So it's my hope that we start to realize that we need to get these things into the schools now, so that as those mental health issues start to come about as a result of what's happened, they just have those tools that they can support themselves.
So important, definitely.
Yeah.
So Kirsty, let's just get back to the business stuff. So when somebody comes to you and they say, okay, I'm a wellness practitioner, I'm a hypnotherapist or a Reiki therapist or, whatever it is, and they come to you and they're like, I have no idea why I haven't got any clients, why I'm really struggling. What is it that you do? How do you work your magic with them? Do you take them all through the same process, or do you have different processes for different types of people? And how does it actually work when people engage with you?
So I have 3 core offerings, really. I have my membership, which is my accessible offer, which is a low cost, high value membership. The intention behind that is this ongoing support that you need. I found through my own development in business that I was going into masterminds or online courses or one-to-one work. But when that stopped, things slowed down. I lost like a bit of momentum. I didn't necessarily want to work at that high level constantly, but I did want some level of accountability. So we've got my membership there. I've got my one-to-one offerings, which I'm very blessed, are always fully booked. It's just a sort of one in, one out system. I work with a core amount of clients on that. And that's really for clients that are already, creating some good momentum in their business, but they really just want to elevate. Or it might be for some people that are wanting to transition from in-person to online or create a bit of a hybrid. And then I have an online course as well, which has sort of self-teaching aspects, but also live aspects of it. But my main thing with everyone that comes into my world is always about building the audience. If you have no idea where to start, don't focus on your offer first, focus on your audience.
Yeah, that's great advice. Absolutely brilliant advice. And a lot of the time, I know you're very, very active on Instagram. And, if you haven't checked out Kirsty's Instagram, just go there now, because it's absolutely amazing. You do some fantastic reels, and I would definitely describe you as an influencer, Kirsty. But yeah, definitely. But I totally agree with you that you have to get known, don't you? And a lot of that comes down to volume, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What do you think? Is it getting out there as often as possible?
I agree. And I think so many of us worry that we don't have the thing that we're going to sell. Maybe we're still working on it. Maybe I've got a podcast episode, it's one of my most popular episodes, which is like what you can do before you qualify. Because I'm saying to people, like, don't wait until you qualify. Okay, you might not have something to offer yet, but take people on that journey, because people buy from people. And if you're waiting until the perfect sealed enveloped, everything's done perfectly before you start introducing yourself to the world. Yeah, I mean, I've definitely been there. I don't know if you've been there, but you put it out there, you think it's going to be like the best thing ever. And then you're like, oh, but this, I worked for ages. And it's like, because no one knows about you. So yes, I absolutely agree. I think it's about reach. It's about practice as well. Like those silly dancing videos of me on reels, like that didn't happen overnight. That's been years of me getting comfortable in front of camera, not taking myself too seriously, getting so firmly in my values, as you were saying, not really caring what other people think about stuff. And that takes time. So if you wait for 2 weeks before you launch the thing, you don't have the time.
No, I'm totally with you on that. And it is a long game. I think success is always a long game. But I totally believe that you need to kind of build up a body of work online, evergreen assets. I mean, in my podcast, I recently did my 100th interview as well with Dr. John DeMartini. And I just only feel now as though it's really kind of gaining momentum. I've got people coming to me. I'm not having to chase guests anymore. I've actually get a stream of emails, people saying, I'd love to put this guest on your podcast. I think your podcast's fabulous. This would be the right person for you. And then I check them out and I think, wow, this person is actually you've got a really interesting profile and they would be amazing on my podcast. And you don't get any of that in the beginning, but you do have to stick with it, don't you, in order to get those rewards. Do you think people are sometimes just unrealistic or impatient, really, when it comes to success and building success?
Yes. And in my 100th episode, we did a bit of a different episode where I got our community to send in questions. And there was a lot of those sort of questions like, what's the main, secret to success sort of stuff. And I just don't think it is a secret. It is just being relentless. The person that is willing to be there when everyone else has given up. I don't know if you've seen, there's a really good documentary, Pink, the singer. She's done a really good documentary. And at the end of that, she's like showing when she received this award. And I'm from the age where it was like Pink and Christina and Britney and all those sorts of people. And at the time, Britney and Christina were like up there, and Pink was like, she wasn't so big. But now she's still there. And I remember her saying on accepting this award, it was something around this idea that like the one that wins is the one that sticks around. And it just hit me, because I thought with all the strategies, with all everything, most people, exactly as you say, they set this bar really high, like in a year, I'm going to hit this. They don't. They believe it's something to do with them, and they give up, or they change, they flip-flop, they change their niche, they change everything.
Yes.
So I think it's consistency and momentum.
I definitely think that. And I was speaking to somebody actually yesterday, and he did a little drawing, and he said, people start off in the beginning with this kind of amazing burst of energy, because they've got this idea and they really think, as you said, that they're going to smash it, they're going to crush it within a year, they're going to be a multimillionaire or whatever. So they're full of all of that excitement. And then what happens is they hit a slump. And of course, that is part of the entrepreneurial journey, that slump. And the slump is where 90% of people give up. Yes. They give up because the going gets tough, and it starts to become about implementation. It's not about ideas anymore. It's not about learning. It's about implementation. And implementation is boring at times, and it's a relentless, grueling road. And the people that actually push through and they implement, and it's day after day after day after day, in the face of setback, in the face of rejection, all of that, one day they will go whoosh like that. And I mean, I've been through that journey myself with my design agency in London. And, we scaled it from 1 to 6 million in 2 years, which is quite a feat. And that was that hard? Yes. Was it fun? No, not really. No, it wasn't. It was all right once we'd actually sold the business and we had the money in the bank. But, actually, it was the 2 hardest years of my life. It really was. Yeah. And so, getting to success is not easy. And people that have actually done it, they know that you really do have to persist, and you do have to be relentless. And, you do have to be resilient. And not, Alex is saying, keyword, Jane, implementation. Yeah. Thank you, Alex. Alex is a great mindset guy. So, but it's that thing of, you have to have faith, you have to persist, you have to not give up, for sure. Yeah. So Kirsty, were there ever times when you felt like giving up, or has it always been easy for you to maintain that incredibly positive mindset?
I think I was thinking as you were talking, I was like, you've just got to want it enough. Like, you've got to really want it. Yeah. And you've got to have that strong why. But yeah, definitely. I mean, I've got 3 children, yes. I had my first child when my spa business was about a year old. And I was, and I remember her being tiny and me just thinking, what the hell am I going to do? It was all new to me. This was in the moments where I had no idea. And it was really tough, really, really tough. And there were someone asked me this before, and did you ever think about giving up? And in honesty, I've never thought about giving up. Maybe that's the difference. It's always been a mindset of how am I going to make this work? Yes, it's a challenge, but how do I make this work? It's just never crossed my mind to give up, because I think I love it. I enjoy it. It fuels me. It's something that I feel if I didn't do, I'd be missing a massive part of who I am. So there's been extremely tough times. I mean, my spa's been closed more than it's been open in the last 18 months, but you just come back stronger. It fuels me.
Yeah. And I think what's really interesting there is that you said that in a way failure was never an option. And I think that is very critical. And I sometimes talk about this, about, actually, if you have a plan B, in a way, it means that you're not backing yourself 100%. I think, have the plan A and make the plan A work, and just, work the hell out of the plan A. And then if it really, really doesn't work, if something is just, because it's not all within our power, you know, as you said, last 18 months, your spa is, I mean, there's nothing that you could have done about it being closed, is there? Because it was, the decision was taken out of your hands. Who would have foreseen the pandemic? So you and a lot of other people have had very tough times as a result of that. But, you know, you've been resilient. You've managed to find, you know, this other direction, and, you know, you've made a success of it. And now your spa's open again. So now you've got that as well, which is great. Yeah.
I mean, I'm a big believer that problems birth solutions. So like there's everything, it's like it creates a vacuum, it creates an opportunity, and it's exactly right. I mean, my spa being shut so much, it gave me the space to go all in on my online business, because when those doors closed, we didn't know about the grants or the loans or anything. And I was like, I've got to keep, or even furlough, I've got to keep my staff, like, you know, paying their mortgage, you know, all of that sort of stuff. So I was like, right, all hands on deck. And yeah, looking back, would my online business have, you know, have got where it's got to now if I hadn't had that? So yeah, I just believe that there's every problem births a solution.
Amazing. So we've got some great comments coming through, Kirsty. So John Hannon has said best podcast. Thank you, John. I've got lots of comments coming from Alex. Guys, if you have any questions to put to Kirsty, she's here, you know, she'll answer them. So we're obviously live on the Smart Connector group. So it's a community of entrepreneurs. So I think people are really loving this, Kirsty, from the comments that are in the chat. So yeah. So Kirsty, what's next for you? You're presumably looking ahead and thinking, okay, now we're coming out of lockdown. What am I going to do next? How am I going to build my own business? So what are your plans for the future?
Yeah, so plans are, I was planning on hosting international retreats pre-lockdown. Ooh. So yeah, they sold out really quickly, which was exciting, but then couldn't go. So so yeah, probably next year now. Like, I think there's no point even trying this year, but hopefully that will come back. That's been something personally I've always wanted to integrate, some international travel into my businesses. Yeah. So that's exciting. For the spa business, to be honest, right now, it's about going deeper rather than wider. I'm not actually thinking about, you know, how do we make this bigger, bigger, bigger? I'm thinking like, how do we heal from what's happened and come back so much stronger? Just getting the team back together, getting the clients back in, doing what we do best. We've launched a few new treatments and all of that sort of shebang, celebrating our birthday. And just digging even deeper on my passion. I want to have the biggest business community for wellness practitioners. Like, it's my thing. As you can hear, I'm very passionate about it. So yeah, we just continue to grow that. You know, my membership's a really big passion of mine. So yeah, the doors are opening again in about 3 to 4 weeks. So we're just in the warm up for that, really.
Wonderful. That's amazing. So I love the idea of the international retreats, Kirsty. So given that you're in wellness, there are some pretty special places in the world that are kind of almost like wellness capitals. I'm thinking about, is it all Ubud in Bali? Yeah. So there are certain kind of places. So do you have somewhere in mind for your wellness retreat, or are you still thinking?
No, we had it all sorted. It was a beautiful villa, a bit like sort of a 20 bedded villa in Ibiza. That's like my second home. And it was really going to be aimed at, you know, wellness practitioners, but who want to come and just work on themselves, you know, do that. As we were saying earlier, sometimes, you know, you're working, like, you just want to cut out the distractions and just focus back on yourself. I'm a big believer that, you know, business is personal growth on steroids, and you need to keep working on yourself in order to reach those next levels. So yeah, it's very much going to be a retreat that is not really business based, but more working on yourself and your own inner well-being.
Oh, I just can't even imagine how amazing that would be to go somewhere. Would it have been in the center of Ibiza or on the coast?
It was near Santa Eulalia, which is like one of my favorite places, sort of. And yeah, I mean, that's the great thing. I have such an incredible network of wellness practitioners that, like, I could just get the most amazing people there delivering amazing things. And yeah, it will happen. It just needs to, when the time is right.
Oh, well, that's fantastic. Well, Kirsty, I just wanted to thank you. It's been such an amazing interview. I've really, really enjoyed it. So thank you so much for joining us tonight on the Smart Connector podcast. And I wish you every success on your journey. But before you go, how can any of our viewers or listeners contact you? What's the best way?
Best place to find me is on Instagram. I'm at Kirsty Kianifard. I'm there a lot. So just send me a DM and we can have a conversation there. If you want any instant sort of help with your wellness business, then head over to the Wellness Entrepreneur podcast. And yeah, I'm most places.
Thank you so much again, Kirsty. And look forward to seeing a lot more of you on Instagram.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been great.
All right.